literally being robbed for refrigerant and coolant, we are now joined by none other than the Carbon King, the man who makes using energy in a high society your absolute must-do. It's at the top of your list, right behind beating yourself up over artificial intelligence. I've been doing that too. Welcoming back to the show, the Honorable Jason Isaac. Thanks for being here.
It's great to be on, Stacy. Thanks for having me.
I'm good. What other time could you come? I literally, we just had some shyster here at the house last week, overcharging us 3 times as much for a pound and a half of refrigerant, the coolant that goes into our AC unit, because we have 3 here. One of them is brand new. One is slightly older, but uses the previous version of the coolant. And he was like, oh, this stuff's really rare now. But he only had a pound and a half of it. So we pay him this outrageous amount for the pound and a half. Call the second guy. The backup guy comes over and charges us a third and just, tops the thing off. And we're like, what? He said, oh, yeah, people have been overcharging for this because it's supposed to be rare. But he said, I have a ton of it, so I just charge the regular rate. Yeah, I have adventures over here,
There are people in California that are in jail because they were bringing it over from Mexico, the kind that's banned, because you had a protectionist industry say, well, we really shouldn't use this kind of coolant. We should only use this kind of coolant. So what did the federal government do during the Biden administration? They outlawed the kind that works really well. And it just so happens that some of these industries that were pushing it, they're the only ones that manufacture the junk that doesn't work and is really more expensive. We're getting robbed by the government. You're getting robbed by the AC techs that are coming to your house. You're just trying to live a high carbon lifestyle, Stacy.
I just need my AC to be ice cold, right? I just need my AC. Sometimes I need it at 63. Nobody at me, nobody email me. I don't want to hear your talk about how it needs to be up at 78, you commie. I need it at 63 sometimes. And, we've actually increased it a little bit because I'm not as hot-blooded as I was for a few years there. Now I'm calmed down. My husband was like, oh, I don't need to have on a robe and socks and extra pajama pants. And I'm like, yeah, I have it up on 69. He's like, 69? Oh, my gosh. I'm like, is that too low? He said, no, that's fantastic. I had it up on 72 the other day. But I couldn't help it because it was a heat wave. That's all as low as I could get it.
Oh, that's great. I mean, the people in French are just frowning at us because we're living this air-conditioned lifestyle. Yeah, they basically surrendered, literally some of them surrendering their lives so they can virtue signal. And the only time, I think I read something today, maybe it was through Mark Morano, that said the only time the French get air conditioning is when they're dead and they get to the morgue. It's mind-boggling to me that there are studies that show if you sleep at 73 degrees, you get a better night's sleep. That increases your life expectancy and all kinds of health outcomes. But yet they just say, nope, we're not going to do with AC because of the carbon emissions that do absolutely nothing except for green the planet, allow people to grow more food on less land. That food uses less water because it's got this natural fertilizer called carbon dioxide. But they've unfortunately been convinced over the last few decades that they need to decarbonize, and that is just the absolute worst thing. I tell people live a high-carbon lifestyle. Hope the rest of the world does, too. We need more CO2 in the atmosphere. It's better for the planet. It's better for humanity.
Yep, and as you have described so accurately here and so well, we have more crops, like everything, the production for farmers and everybody, it's just through the roof. And we've only had the teensiest little uptick in CO2. So there's no danger to plant life or animals or humans. There's no reason for us to be rationing coolant or overcharging each other for it or acting like it's a black market product. It's not. Just stop it. Like, stop acting like we're in the Hunger Games. We are not.
No, we're absolutely not. There's nurseries out there. The flowers that you're getting at your florist or the store, a lot of the food that you're getting at the grocery store, they're growing these in nurseries, and they're actually increasing the concentration of CO2 to get it to be like what you're at when you're at a speaking conference, about 1,600 parts per million, 4 times the atmospheric concentration. Granted, what we're having in the atmosphere is 0.04%. So you get it up to 0.16, and you actually use less water, you grow more food, and that's what nurseries and other places, indoor greenhouses, are doing. They're artificially increasing the CO2 because they know it's fertilizer, they know it's a benefit for the food, and it saves water. Last time I checked, water conservation was a good thing. Hey, maybe use it for data.
Oh my gosh! Why wouldn't we want to conserve water? Because that's the other part. We have all these data center build outs, and everyone's worried about water consumption. Well, then that means we should be looking for different ways to conserve water. And if increasing CO2 does that, and it also gives us more plant life, which I'm a gardener. My rose garden is exploding this year. I've added a bunch of new plants that I at one point thought, I'm going to have to graduate up into like those plants. Those plants over there, those are for real gardeners. Well, this is my year. I have graduated up and I've added some things, and I'm way out ahead of where I thought I would be a few years back in my garden. And I love the way the plants love the hot weather. They love the temperate summer. They love the cool summer. They're just like, as long as they have some water and they have soil and a little bit of feeding, they're going to do great. And so when you talk about the benefits of CO2, like, I'm right there with you. I'm watching these, like, every day. I'm looking at them. And I've even kept alive now. I have 3 orchids in here. Orchids.
Wow.
I'm keeping them alive. They're alive, and they're actually blooming again. They're re-blooming. That's what I've got going on over here. So when you say CO2, I'm like, yes, come on.
Not only are they getting more CO2, they're getting more sunlight, because in the United States, we've reduced the criteria pollutants nearly 80% over the last 5 decades. That's stuff like ozone, particulate matter, things that in certain concentrations are dangerous to human health. We're world leaders in clean air. That actually means that more sunlight is making it to the surface. So guess what's going to happen there? It's going to get warmer, especially in cities where you have a lot of asphalt and concrete, these urban heat islands. So, if people are so worried about global warming, which people are living wonderfully well through, and it's actually a benefit to humanity. I don't think we want to be following Bill Gates' ideas of putting particulate matter in the atmosphere, these little reflective things. We can just burn coal without pollution control technology. Burn wood without pollution control technology. And that would actually block the sunlight. But no, I think we like the clean air here in the United States. I think our trading partners should work on technology like we have here in the U.S. that improves human health and improves air quality.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be something? If our trading partners, namely the Europeans who need to get their acts together, stop worrying about us taking over Greenland, because that's going to happen, and just go ahead and start working on getting air conditioning for themselves and catching up to us technologically. We're supposed to be partners. We're not supposed to be their parents.
Yeah, I just can't believe it. And I've heard about the horror stories about people visiting parts of Europe during the wrong time when it's extremely hot, and just telling me how awful it was because there wasn't air conditioning. I've had the same opportunities in Central and South America, going to places where AC is just not very prevalent, and you're just soaking wet because of the humidity and the heat. So you're dehydrating, and it's just like, why can't they get air conditioning? I went on an economic development tour to Myanmar and met actually in the Department of Energy building, and they turned on the window units for us Americans. We were wearing suits. We weren't wearing the loose, baggy clothes that they wear. We're wearing suits, and we're sweating profusely. They turn on the air conditioning window units for us, and the power in the Department of Energy building goes out 3 times. And they don't want to talk about getting natural gas from Texas. They want to talk about building wind and solar, because that's what the UN is bribing them to do.
Wind and solar aren't going to help at all when the temperatures get hot and you need some AC. The only thing that helps that is carbon-powered electricity and the best coolant, or as I like to call it, refrigerant, because I'm thinking of refrigerating human bodies. Yes, you need that strong. Actually, I don't care what iteration it is. I don't care what version. The old stuff works just as good as the new stuff. That's a lie from the pit of hell with these greenies telling us that you can't use that refrigerant. And that's why the one guy told us you'd be better off, instead of filling up this one, to just put a new unit in. So my husband was like, okay, well, sure, let's go ahead and do it. He said, well, the new units are running for this size about $6,000. And he was like, as opposed to just putting in the refrigerant, the coolant. You're talking about the coolant, right? He said, yeah, it's probably better for you to just replace the unit. And my husband was like, no, I don't think so. I was just, kind of flowing in and out of this conversation. He was taking care of it. I really wasn't paying that close attention until I heard $6,000, and I was kind of looking like, what are we doing over here for $6,000? What might we be doing? And then he was like, replacing this unit, and I was like, that unit is perfectly good. It was made during the time where they let AC units last for 30 years. We can keep this for another 15 years. And the guy was like, yeah, but the coolant's really expensive. I was like, is it $6,000? He said, no. I said, is it $5,000? He said, no. I said, well, then I got to fill her up. And then I trundled right back in here to the office where it was moderately cool and waited to hear more news. And my husband just popped by the door. He just popped the door open and said, yeah, we're going to go ahead and fill it up with refrigerant. He's almost finished. I'm going to pay him and he's going to leave. And I was like, okay. Later on, we were laughing about it because I was like, what made him think we would want to spend $6,000 on a new unit when this one works perfectly fine? Like, what? I don't know what's wrong with people.
Yeah, hang on to those old appliances. They work. Fortunately, the ones that work are coming back thanks to the current administration and getting rid of all these rules and requirements about refrigerant and it just absurd stuff. Like you can actually buy a natural gas oven. You can get an oven that runs on propane, a cooktop. I mean, those things are coming back. They were absolutely at the federal and state level trying to ban these appliances that work well. I think the last time I was on, I was talking about a new dishwasher that we had that my wife just loves. And, well, guess what? It didn't even last 2 months. We had someone coming out today spending hours. So I'm hoping it's actually repaired now. A brand new dishwasher didn't make it 2 months. But I'm hoping after several hours of the technician here today, hopefully working under warranty, is going to get this thing back up and running because my wife was getting a little tired and I was certainly getting tired of hand washing dishes. I never do a good enough job. She spots stuff in the cabinet like, you missed the spot. I'm like, oops.
Well, hand washing dishes, I mean, that's for the young moms who they make their own pasta from scratch. They cook their own pie crust. They bake their own bread. They hand wash their dishes. These are content creators, and millions of people tune in to watch them do that with perfect makeup, glass skin, the nails that cost $1,000 for, every 3 weeks. So that's for them. For those of us who work and have lives, I do wash dishes every day, but it's like a few little things, some pots and pans perhaps. Everything else goes in the dishwasher, and that's not even every day. Like some days we eat out. It's either we're out there eating or we're bringing food back here to eat, and we are not making dishes beyond a plate and some glasses to go into the dishwasher. But there's a purpose to having a dishwasher. It frees you up as an advanced human in an advanced society to do other things like prep for a radio show or prep for tomorrow. You might have things to do, maybe get out into your garden and water and, maybe spread a little bit of fertilizer around. Whatever you got to do, you don't have to spend that time washing dishes or hand washing your clothes. Or, there's a whole bunch of stuff. Like, you're like, why would we do that?
Yeah, there was a study years ago that came out of Guatemala that talks about having accessibility to a clothes washing machine, maybe a dishwashing machine, and how much time it saved for women. These in Guatemala, these are things that were specifically a majority of women, and primarily it was the women that was doing this, kind of like what you see in Africa and third world countries. The women are the ones that are responsible for collecting water, and they spend over 200 million hours a day walking to collect water because they don't have access to affordable and reliable energy. The average woman, that's you included and my wife included, will walk over 3 miles today to collect water. They're doing it in unsafe conditions. They're primarily walking by themselves. This is not a society that's advancing. And you get them access to energy. You can build wells, and you have a hydrocarbon-powered well that can pull water up and provide that to communities that are close so women don't have to walk. I mean, really, energy is the key to ending poverty around the world. And fortunately, we're at one of the lowest points in people living in abject poverty of less than $2 a day than we've ever been. It unfortunately reversed during the Biden administration and went back up, a trend that had been decreasing for 5 decades. Now we're back at the point where that trend is decreasing again and lifting more people out of poverty.
I mean, how can you with a straight face oppose any of that?
Absolutely, and the media is just talking about the warming. They're blaming all the cancellations in the blue states of the Independence Day parades. Silly children's bicycle parades are getting canceled by cities. It just so happens to be these are blue cities and blue states that were canceling the celebration of our nation's independence, our 250th anniversary. Thank God for our founding fathers that they had the foresight to leave an empire that is just collapsing before our lives. Now the British Empire, now there's the European Empire, the European Union, which is also collapsing. So thank God for our founding fathers that lived their lives knowing that they would be killed if they were found and discovered, and they wound up being broke at the end of their lives so that you and I could live free and prosperous. God bless them. I couldn't be more grateful to be an American.
Oh, yeah, I do. I think about, and if you guys really want to experience that same gratitude, the Young Washington film is all over America right now. You can go see it at any theater, and I've only heard good things about it. We're planning on going and seeing it this weekend, and so you can kind of get a glimpse into what things were like back there and back then in that time. For these young guys, they weren't old white guys. They were young white guys. They wore wigs that made them look older in the pictures, but they were actually very, very young, and they were very, very strong, and they were very, very intelligent, and they were courageous, and they didn't think about stuff for a long time. They just went and did cool stuff, a lot of really cool, unbelievable stuff, and they were miraculous guys. They experienced miracles, like George Washington being shot through his waistcoat all those times, having horses shot out from under him, and he didn't sustain any actual physical injuries. These are miracles that occurred. And they were all for our benefit. They were providentially provided for us so that I could sit here with my AC. It just happens to be on 71 right now in this section of the house where the studio is located. And I happen to know that because I put it on 71 because it was on 73 earlier and it got a little warm for my liking. I lowered it to 70 and then immediately regretted it because I was sitting next to a vent. I thought, why am I freezing myself out? So I moved it to 71. And it is very comfortable in here. I have lots of lights on in here, lots of little tiny lamps that are all antiques and made from different porcelains and stuff like that. And then I'll turn off some of these, and I'll stay in here for another hour after the show is over. And then I'll turn out all 4 or 5 of these lamps and go into the upstairs where it will be 68 because it's time to go to sleep. And it is a longevity hack to sleep in a cool room so that you have a more deep sleep, so that you can sleep better and live longer. Yes, I said all of that. And you should go see the movie.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And I was citing a study that shows 73, but you're right. I've had so many people correct me. And they're like, oh, actually, it's 68, it's 67, it's 69. You're supposed to sleep
it's in
cooler.
The 60s.
I love it. And fortunately, we live in a country that we have the freedom to do that. We have the availability of the energy to do that. Unfortunately, blue states are trying to make it harder for us to do that. They're trying to increase the cost of electricity on the grid. That was something that Obama talked about. The prices will necessarily skyrocket.
Yeah.
And then you've got the left in Europe talking about all the deaths of people that have died because of this heat. It's unfortunately, it's self-inflicted. It's what happens when you elect and embrace socialism. That's what happens. But I think you and I, and probably most of your listeners, know that cold temperatures are more dangerous than warm temperatures. The deaths will, in some cases, are 40 times higher for freezing deaths because freezing temperatures are much more dangerous. Mm-hmm. And so it's just completely self-inflicted. This is what happens when you have socialist and then communism. They've never worked, but yet they keep trying over and over again. And it's really amazing to see that there are young people that are embracing this. It just blows my mind. Please embrace our representative republic that we have here in the United States and capitalism.
Yeah, and also embrace the fact that during the heat wave you were running to wherever the AC was the coldest. Embrace that. Don't talk about, oh, we want to reduce emissions. Reduce your emissions. Why don't you reduce using AC during the heat wave? Why don't you just not use any? Go sit outside and fan yourself like you're in a communist country, because that's all they have. They have fans. And we here have ice cold air conditioning. The Europeans have actually been commenting on how it's hot like hell outside. And then when they go inside, like to the Museum of Walmart, which is what they call it, or the Museum of Home Depot, they actually think that our hardware stores are like museums as well because they've never seen building materials that regular people could buy. So they're going into these places, and what they notice is walking through the door, there's a blast of ice cold air. And then it's cold. They go from being hot, like they're going to die, to being cold, like physically feeling cold. And I'm like, oh, that's regular AC. That's what that is. But they're not used to it. And so the communists need to understand that if they really wanted to experience that, it's so easy. It's a quick flight over to Europe and go over and stay as long as you'd like. They're letting the migrants stay. You might as well go as an American and stay. And then come back and talk to us after you've been there for a few months. And there you see people, older people, 20 or so of them have dropped dead of the heat over there. And they're over here complaining about our air conditioning and how expensive it is. It's ludicrous that we have to put up with these people.
Yeah, it's elderly abuse and abuse of young people as well. You go into the hospitals there, and I've been looking at this and seeing pictures of people sitting in hospitals sweating. That hospitals are being built without air conditioning, except in the operating rooms. This is just appalling. You look what the EU Parliament did. They shut the power off on the bottom 7 floor, or the AC off on the bottom 7 floors of their building because of the heat wave. It's interesting to note that only like the lower level people that work for the EU Parliament work on the bottom 7 floors. The higher up people, the members of Parliament and the EU officials work on the 8th floor and above. So air conditioning for me, not for thee. That's socialism at its finest. I wish people would go to Cuba and visit Cuba and get to experience what it's like. They're having their major blackout because they don't have affordable and reliable energy. They have an antiquated grid. It's what's happened in Germany. It's happening in the United Kingdom. Their infrastructure is aging and they're falling apart. And you just need to look at Cuba. And that's kind of where the direction that California is heading. That's where the direction that Virginia is heading. And that's not really a direction that people want to live. And I think that's why so many people are fleeing California right now. They want to be able to have gasoline is affordable, which they just raised the gas tax on July 1st. Maryland raised their gas tax on July 1st. This is completely absurd, the policies that people have elected, and now they're paying the cost.
I just can't even, it's hard to wrap your mind around someone rejecting the high carbon lifestyle. Actually living in it. Like living in the ice cold AC. Like I'm just trying to figure it out. You have a car where you just press 1 or 2 buttons and all of a sudden there's cold air blasting right into your face. There's nothing better when you're like unloading groceries or something and you get in the car and you're super hot and you turn your AC down where it says low. It can't go any lower. And then you hit auto, so it's blasting on every vent is blasting. And within 2 minutes, you're literally feeling cold air on your face. And you just can calm down and pull out your little insulated water thing and drink some water. Like, oh, okay, now I can make it home. It's so hot outside. And the car tells you what the temperature is. It says it's 101 degrees today. And I'm like, in Missouri? That's unbelievable. And so then I drive home. How could you live like that? How could you walk out of the Starbucks where you just got an iced coffee, venti, with 4 pumps of classic and half and whipped cream? How could you walk out with that, get into your car, blast your face with cold air, drive home, walk into your air-conditioned house, pull your groceries in your Hulk in and unload everything, and then sit down to finish your coffee off? How could you do that and then advocate for the end of coolant? How?
Yeah, we need a Green New Deal while they sit there and drink that iced coffee
that they just got from Starbucks.
That's the absurdity of people. But I know media, they're reading and they're watching and they're being fed lies and alarmist material. You look at what since April, the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, they withdrew this scenario. They have these climate models and they're based on different so-called emission scenarios. Like if we have 12 billion people on the planet that are using 5 times more coal than would be used for man, that's going to increase CO2 emissions, and we're going to see this much warming, which you wouldn't, because there's no connection between CO2 emissions and warming. Maybe water vapor. It's 6 or 7 times more prevalent in the atmosphere and a much more heat-trapping gas. But I don't want to give any leftists any ideas for embracing net zero H2O because the next thing you know is we're all dying because we don't have water. Look, the UN just withdrew this model that they have been pushing out for the last nearly 2 decades. There are 6 states that have adopted education curriculum that requires the teaching of this model, and the UN just withdrew it, saying it's completely implausible. And the first reports of this being impossible were in 2017, and they kept using it. And then in 2020, there was more reports like this is never going to happen, even from UN. But the UN said this is the model that all research must be based on. This is the business as usual model. And it's unbelievable. I think between 2017 and 2024, you had 17,000 research papers that were published using this model. And we at the American Energy Institute just put together a project here in the last few weeks. We call it They Knew. It's really a kind of play on because some of the climate alarmists have claimed that Exxon knew that the products they were making was causing this catastrophic climate crisis that we're all living wonderfully well through. And they use this hashtag Exxon Knew. So I put together this website called They Knew. It's they-knew.com. If it's easier, you can go to algoreknew.com. You can go to blackrocknew.com. All the information is there talking about this model being withdrawn. And since April, we have a continued misuse button on the website. Over 60 papers have been published just since April, still using this scenario that has been rescinded from the UN, saying it's impossible, it's implausible, it's not going to happen. But people are still being fed lies. Media is still printing it, and we're tracking it. We've got the receipts.
Wow. Well, all I can say, everybody, is it's up to you. And now it's up to you. Smokey Bear would say it's up to you to prevent forest fires. I'm saying, Stacy on the right is saying it's up to you to prevent the greenies from taking away your refrigerant, your coolant. It's up to you to prevent them from ruining any more appliances because President Trump's trying to fix them all, but they will roll those regulations back if they can if you elect them again. So don't elect Democrats because they don't want you to have ice cold air or dishwashers that work or washing machines that wash clothes. And I go back to the air. They also don't want you to have the heating either. They don't want you to have natural gas heating, which is the cheapest and most efficient. And so just don't elect them. That's the only way you can stop them from controlling your life. This is June's climate realism fact check that the Honorable Jason Isaac is bringing to you. And I can tell you he's the real deal. I've met him in person, my husband and I, and we walked away blown away. The guy is the real deal. He's the carbon king. He's literally the carbon king. And you want to be a carbon king too. He's not the only one. You can be a carbon king. You can be a carbon queen. You can be like us. You can be absolutely proud to use the God-given advancements, technological advancements that make this country one of the best places on the planet. I have to say, it's always a pleasure. Thank you for coming on tonight.
It's great to be on. I love the Smokey analogy. Only you can prevent climate stupidity.
That's
Only
right.
you can embrace the high carbon lifestyle.
I think that's a T-shirt you need to make. I'll buy one. Two. One for me and my husband.
I love it. Thanks, Stacy. Appreciate
You're
you.
welcome.
God bless.
All right. God bless. Talk to you soon. And we'll be back with more